Welcome to Baha'i on Air. In this episode, we meet two Kiwi Baha'is who work as department heads at the Baha'i World Centre in Israel. Haifa is the spiritual and administrative heart for Baha'is all over the world. It's holy to us because some of the central figures of our faith are buried there in beautiful shrines and gardens. It's the administrative heart for Baha'is all over the world, attracting Baha'is who want to be a part of the action. So let's meet a Tongan chef from Takapuna and a Kiwi accountant from Northland and see why they packed up and moved across the globe to Israel. Tongan-born Manu Schutz heads up the Baha'i staff kitchen and dining room located in a new building on the arc of magnificent buildings on the side of Mount Carmel. Before Manu and her husband Ian started working at the Baha'i World Centre, she worked for 27 years in the restaurant industry in Auckland.
We applied to come here to Baha'i World Centre and work here on September year 2000, and we've been accepted for our application on October, and then we arrived here on November, and it's so very fast.
This is Tony White. He is coordinator of all the Bahai Gardens located in Haifa, which include the beautiful and majestic 19 terraces which stretch from the city of Haifa to the top of Mount Carmel. Tony's wife Wendy also works in the gardens as quality control manager.
We've been serving here for 11 years. We came from London to here. We were invited to come from London, and at that time Wendy and I were on a working holiday from New Zealand, and we'd been in London for 2 or 3 years, and the opportunity to come and serve here came up, and so we accepted it. And Wendy initially worked with the building section and in the Department of Holy Places, and I joined the gardens. And in 1994 I started with the Carmel Project's work on the building of these terrace gardens.
We're having chicken schnitzel and pork chops. And we have island chop soup, beef island chop soup in Polynesian style. And then we have broccoli and sweet corn for vegetables.
It's really good for their nutrition here, but I use a lot of vegetables, and it's the main thing that for the Baha'i here, they love their vegetables here, and it's cost me a little bit of lot of money, but it's good for their diet.
And then we have tapaki sauce to serve with our chicken schnitzel. And we have all different type of salad.
More or less, in here, they lot of Middle East food here and European food.
And we have cream of vegetables too. We got chickpeas and spinach. Then we have a lentil and the rice in Asian style.
I try to do all my best here to cater to the different nationality. Like I used to make Persian ash, and I used to make some Chinese dish, Indian curry, and all those things. I try to do my best.
And then we have all our nice pudding there. We've got apple pie, queen cake, and we've got plum pudding, and we've got chocolate pudding.
My job is extremely demanding and challenging, because we have, working in the gardens here in Haifa, we have approximately 100 people. We are largely reliant on a local content in our gardeners. We only have approximately 30% Baha'is. It's quite difficult to get skills in horticulture, both in this country and also from the Baha'i world. We're constantly looking for people that are trained in horticulture, people that are trained in gardening. They don't have to be academically trained, they can be from any country in the world, to come here to assist us with our supervision of the gardens. Probably the most demanding thing for me in the work is to deal with a staff that covers 6 different religions and probably about 20 or 30 different countries. Israel is a challenging place to live in, with or without conflict. It's climatically it's quite harsh. We have many consequences in the gardens of the environmental influence. It has high humidity. It's a very young country, and it's had lots of conflicts up to this point, and you can see the consequences in this country where they haven't been able to develop in the manner that they might like to. It's still going on now, and while Haifa seems to be somewhat isolated from it and a little bit protected, generally Israel is a very safe place to live in. It has nothing like the level of crime that you experience in some Western countries. It has the crimes against the person are very, very rare. It's a very safe place for people to walk around at night, whether they be male or female, by themselves or in groups. And while there's always tension here, and it does have its challenges living here, the current conflict is not disturbing us, and it's not interrupting our work.
I'm cooking for over 200 people a day, and lunch only. And most of them are very, very happy when they come for lunch. I think that it's very, very important for the people to have a good food, especially when they work very hard and they come to the kitchen and enjoy themselves.
Enjoy it.
This is the part of my policy in the kitchen. When the friends are happy, at the end of the day, I am happy as well. Actually, we got 19 of New Zealand working here, and most of them are working in different departments, and some of them been here a long time. They serve or working here for about 7 years, and some of them have just been here for 1 year.
Big appetite. His plate is so big. Every lunchtime.
The development of the terraces was in addition to existing gardens that had been developed here around the holy places. This was a 10-year project, and that's not all it was. It was a process. It was a process that started over 100 years ago. It started with Baha'u'llah, who the Baha'is understand to be a manifestation of God, and he, in the latter years of his life, when he visited Mount Carmel, he pointed out the very spot up here where the remains of the prophet herald of the faith, the Bab, who announced the coming of Baha'u'llah as a new manifestation of God. He pointed out the exact spot to his son, Abdul-Baha, as to where the remains of the Bab should be buried. It was some 50 years later that Abdul-Baha erected the first part of the shrine of the Bab and was able to bring the remains of the Bab, who was martyred in Iran in 1850, to the spot to bury him. And even though historically this mountain, Mount Carmel, has been known as the Mountain of the Lord, at that point that Baha'u'llah decided that this was the place that the Bab should be buried, this place became a very sacred spot. So the design of the terraces, the terrace gardens, actually originated from a vision of Baha'u'llah. And it was carried by his son Abdul-Baha, who actually did the planning work involved in envisaging 9 terraces leading up to the shrine and 9 above the shrine as an adornment to the shrine. It's like the shrine is the jewel in this ring. While the gardens are principally designed on the basis of an appropriate environment with the right ambience for reverence and devotion and prayerful meditation for pilgrimage, which includes the Baha'is, of course, at this point in time. They are also open to the public. The gardens are not confined to the Baha'is, but the design itself has the spiritual concept in mind. There's a point here which has to be remembered with these gardens, and that is there's beautiful gardens everywhere. And people may think that this garden here, while it is unique, is in somehow comparable with other gardens in the world. And to some degree it is, but this is not a botanical garden. It's not a park. It's a specific spiritual design that creates an atmosphere for people to approach this most holy shrine.
You are watching Baha'i on Air. In this program, we're talking to two Kiwi Baha'is who serve at the Baha'i World Centre in Haifa, Israel. They share with us the challenges and rewards that come from living in the Holy Land. Baha'u'llah, the prophet and founder of the Baha'i faith, speaks of this mountain where Manu and Tony work, Mount Carmel.
Carmel, in the Book of God, hath been designated as the hill of God and his vineyard. It is here that by the grace of the Lord of Revelation, the tabernacle of glory hath been raised. Happy are they that attain thereunto, happy they that set their faces toward it.
I'm very, very pleased and happy to work with different culture.
There's another 3 minutes. Another 3 minutes? 4 minutes. Okay.
And it enforces what Baha'u'llah, our prophet of the Baha'i faith, say that unity of mankind, and it's shown in the Baha'i World Centre, because all different nationality is working here happily, and all of them are saved to the top of their ability. I got lovely 10 staff working with me, and most of them are being at the university, but they have a break and come here and serve in the Baha'i World Centre here, or work in the kitchen. And I train them, and I do a lot of cooking experience with them. Some of them, they quite happy when they go back and might be carry on as a chefing or working in catering industrial. I'm only the qualified and experienced chef to do all the cooking, but I can't do by myself without my 10 staff, and they work very, very hard in the kitchen.
My academic background actually is in accountancy and economics, and I progressed from there into commercial accounting in various business enterprises, and then in about 1976 or 77 we moved to the Bay of Islands to develop a fruit orchard. We spent 10 years there developing that, and got it to some level of export with a variety of subtropical fruits. And we had decided that we would only spend a short period of time there, like 5 years, to get it up and running. We spent 10, and we were in dire need of a holiday, so we decided to put a manager in and head off on a working holiday to anywhere. We ended up in Europe, ended up in London. And so that gave me my initial 10 years experience, say, in the horticultural field. Gave me very valuable information in irrigation and pest and disease and chemicals and fertilizers, things like that. Not thinking, of course, that we would end up here. It was just another part of life. And then it didn't really have a direct connection with us being invited here. But the combination of having a horticultural background, albeit 1 decade, and a commercial background in accountancy is turned out to be a suitable combination for this work here at the Baha'i World Centre in terms of managing the gardens. Natalia, everything all right here? You all right?
There's another Tongan girl here, working here as well, and she was here for about nearly 5 years. Her name is Tolofi Taufalele, and she got all her brother and her sister back in New Zealand, and she really enjoyed her service here. That's why she's been here a long time. And it's only 2 of us Tongan here, so it's incredible to be 2 of us from the little tiny Tongan to be here in Israel and serve in the Baha'i World Centre.
This is a piece of ornamentation from the gardens from probably 30 years ago, and its origin is possibly in the Orient, and it was purchased as part of Shoghi Effendi, who was the guardian of the faith, his efforts in designing and combining ornamentation with the gardens when he was constructing them. This has been reinstated with all its gilding, but unfortunately recently it broke off in the wind, and we have a little bit of a problem to get it fixed because many of the bronzes that were used in early years had a high lead content in them, and so we really need to get this to a conservator to repair it. The ornamentation on the terraces was actually largely done by us. There's something like about 400 pieces in stone and bronze, and we did most of the work here using a New Zealand artist who is currently living in Northland, plus a friend of his who was from New Zealand, and plus a Samoan who spent 18 months in a workshop here making the moulds and making the ornaments, also using a foundry to pour the bronze, and it took them about 18 months. It was a stupendous effort. It was an amazing effort. They worked from dawn till dusk every day to get it done. Right. Well, Jeanette's had to go to the hospital to... I'm a manager at heart. I like dealing with the people and solving the problems. I like especially devising management systems that create a unity within the workforce. I've tried to adopt Baha'i principles in management, and there's many countries, of course, around the world with businesses that do exactly the same thing, even though they're not Baha'is. In fact, I've talked to many people who are much more advanced than the things that I'm doing. But I've tried to incorporate in our management methods that will draw the best out of people, methods that will create more initiative, will expand people's capacity. And part of the process is when you delegate and when you spread the responsibility around the workforce, part of the process is to get a feedback and to get a consolidation through consultation, through discussions. And so this particular challenge I've enjoyed working with a lot.
Actually, my husband, he had to come together with me here to the Baha'i World Centre, and I can't leave him at home. And he's working at the food service, and that's where we purchasing and supply the food for the Baha'i World Centre here. And we got 2 lovely girls back in Auckland. I miss them very dearly. The oldest one already married, and she's very busy with her career. The young ones, she was educated at the Auckland University Technology for one year, but she won't have a break, and she just do her working back in Auckland. Hopefully they're gonna come this December and see us here, and I like them to come here and see all the unique and different nationality here, and I hope they will be coming and see all the holy places here in Baha'i World Centre.
Our family is grown up, and they're well settled. We had one daughter who came and served here at the World Centre for about 9 months, and a son-in-law who served here making ornaments for the terraces for 18 months. And we've had a son that's visited here, another son that stayed with us in London for a while. So they've moved around the world a little bit.
You are watching Baha'i on Air. In this episode, we're talking to two Kiwi Baha'is who serve at the Baha'i World Centre in Haifa, Israel. Manu Schutz heads up the kitchen and staff dining areas, and Tony White is the administrator for the beautiful Bahai Gardens. Here is a statement from the Baha'is about the terraces going up the side of Mount Carmel.
The gardens which surround the structure, in their rich variety of colours and plants, are a reminder that the human race can live harmoniously in all its diversity. The light that shines from the central edifice is as a beacon of hope to the countless multitudes who yearn for a life that satisfies the soul as well as the body.
Actually, I'm a second generation Baha'i, and I still very privileged for my father to give me the Baha'i revelation to our family, and all my sisters and brother are Baha'i. And I became a Baha'i in Tonga because my father, one of the first Baha'i back in Tonga in 1957, and I still really appreciate what he's been taught to all of us.
I became a Baha'i in 1988. I was introduced to the faith by my wife, who in turn was introduced by a friend of ours in Northland, in the Bay of Islands. And in typical academic style, I chose to ignore it for some time, because even though, you know, everybody's searching, the question always goes through people's minds from time to time, from an early age of childhood, as to what's it all about? Why are we here? I mean, what's this magnificent creation that we're a part of, and how do we fit into it? And I didn't find that my exposure to religion up to that point had answered any questions. In fact, it probably, if anything, made me feel guilty. And so I was not on a search at that time. And of course, in being a materialist, I put it to one side. I was too busy. There was too many important things in my life. And it wasn't till we went to England that I had some time to read a few things and to make some inquiries that my wife Wendy had led me towards. And I suddenly discovered that the Baha'i faith made sense. It started to answer my questions. It started to give some explanation as to why we are here. What is the purpose of our existence in this wonderful creation of God? And so that led me to join the Baha'i faith. And the most appealing part, I think, of what I learnt in those days was that we were charged with individual responsibility for our own spiritual growth. We didn't have a church where we were told what to do, or people were telling us whether we were good or bad. We had to conduct our own search for the truth, conduct our own inquiries to enhance our development as human beings, both spiritually and physically. And that took me by surprise, and it also had enormous appeal. I think everybody has some sort of innate feeling of common sense within them, and they can recognize sense when they see it. And this was the first time at age 40 or 45 that suddenly something made sense.
Good morning, kitchen here, Manu speaking. Oh, good morning, Danny. How are you? Salaam, shalom. We can.
I can see how I've been born in Tonga and live in New Zealand. It's amazing to be here in Israel in Baha'i World Centre, and I still thank a lot for the House of Justice to allow me to come here and work in Israel. You know, and I didn't know in my whole life that I'll be here and working here in this beautiful, holy places in the world.
demanding, it's spiritually rewarding. I think back to the times when I became a Baha'i and the amount of research and reading that I did and what have you then, and look at what I'm able to do now to fit in with my very long hours, and it's incomparable really, that this really has become a place of work, and within that work of course is service, and service has a spiritual connotation. The other interesting part about this, even though I'm not doing and haven't got the time to do my individual research at the moment, just the fact that you are here in this environment, working on this mountain, working in this spiritual context, is soul transforming, really.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Baha'i on Air, where we talked to two Kiwi Baha'is who live and work at the Baha'i World Centre in Haifa, Israel. If you would like any more information about the Baha'i faith, check out our website, www.baha'i.org.nz. Ka kite, and thank you for joining us.